Welcome to the podcast that puts a finger on the pulse of medicine and technology. On this show, you'll hear from investors, industry executives, and healthcare providers on the science and business of medicine. I'm your host, Omar Khateeb, and this is the State of MedTech. Thanks, everybody, for joining. Hey, Qasim, thanks for coming on to this show, which is, for those who, for some reason, don't know who you are, this is Dr. Qasim. But Qasim, give us like a little bit of a high level on who you are and your background. And then today, I just learned, is a very special day. So I'm honored that you chose, your first activity was coming on this show. So tell us a little about your background and what just happened today.
Well, yeah. So I'm actually a nephrologist, which is a kidney doctor. I've been at it for about 11 years. If you count fellowship, it's actually like 13. I'm actually a clinical nephrologist and an interventional nephrologist. And what that means is I do dialysis access work on people with accesses in their arms and catheters in their neck and all such stuff. So I do that half the time, kind of alternating. Over the last 5 to 6 years, I kind of been in the whole self-improvement thing. You know, I think you're kind of into it too, Omar, you know. And over that time, I've gained financial literacy, understanding of various topics. And then, and I actually started my own social media, and I'm on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, all that kind of stuff. My YouTube channel is called Your Kidneys, Your Health. I kind of make simple content, educational content for patients using layperson's language, 2 to 5 minutes long, that kind of thing. And what's happened with me is, like, you know, medicine's been a kind of a thing I've been doing for quite some time, but it becomes less and less fulfilling, right? At a certain point, you realize you're not growing as a person. You kind of get stuck in the day to day. And so I've always been looking for new opportunities and new things. And what's cool is in 2020, which was the weirdest thing to happen, but was a really good year for me, in the sense that all of a sudden everyone's at home. All of a sudden, they're watching more of my not my YouTube stuff, but my LinkedIn stuff. And LinkedIn was really beneficial to me as far as getting contacts and things like that. And what happened in 2020, I met someone like yourself. And I remember we talked for like 3 hours that day, right? We
3 hours on Friday. That's right. That's right.
Yeah, I think you had a meeting and you canceled it. You were like, hell with it, I'll just keep on talking.
Yeah, because I had a great time.
Yeah, no, we just connected so well. And, you know, we have similar interests, read a lot of books and do a lot of cool things. And you introduced me to this world of MedTech, medical technology and stuff. And as a physician, you never really understand that world. The only experience you have with med device is typically the sales rep that comes to your office with the free coffee.
People want stuff heard from you.
Yeah. So I've never seen the creative side of it or the innovative side of it. I just see the final product. And so once I got involved, you know, I started talking to you. We started, talking, but also companies, because of my LinkedIn profile, started reaching out to me. So I've gotten certain scientific advisory roles on companies. Aleo is one of them. Icona Health is another. And I've worked with Dr. PD as well, too. All of a sudden, I've got these insights into the startup space. And when I got into the startup space, I just realized, holy crap, there are so many creative people out there. You just have to find them. Right. Mm-hmm. And then you, all of a sudden, your mind starts working differently and you start thinking differently when you talk to like venture capitalists and all this kind of stuff. And over that time, I've kind of said, hey, this is kind of something I'm really interested in. And when I remember you particularly told me, hey, you need to attend this MedTech conference called LSI, Life Science Intelligence. And that's where
shout out to Scott Pentel. Yeah, shout out to Scott.
Shout out to him, because he's a part of my change as well too. Love the conference. Just being around that kind of intellect and talent and just innovation was just crazy. And the collaborative nature of it, where you see, like, one of the CEOs of one of my startups was there. And that is literally one of the coolest things I've ever seen, was 2 founders talking about funding and how they gained funding and just kind of helping each other out. It was so cool. That's Dave Karangatla, and I can't say his name properly, but he's a great guy, with Aleo. But anyway, so I'm there, and then when I come back, I'm like, you know what, I need to go into this industry. And it's either MedTech or healthcare startups. So I gave my resignation at that time. And when I gave my resignation, I have this ridiculous 6-month notice, which is crazy, a half a year. But it's up on November 24th of this year. And today is special in a weird way, because at 5 p.m. Central, which was just about 20 minutes ago, I had my last weekend call of my life, which is just the most ridiculous thing to say as a physician in your 40s, just to say that. And, you know, if you're a physician, like being on call is something after a while that you dread. And you're like, oh my God, another weekend taken away from me, another night taken away from me, or a night of bad sleep. All of a sudden right now I have this air of like, oh my God, it's a thing, like a shoulder, like a burden lifted off my shoulders. Like, holy crap, I don't have to do that anymore. I got about 3 more days left of actual clinical practice. And actually right now I'm pursuing roles in startups, whether that be chief medical officer, medical director, or any innovative roles I can come up with. So I'm in the process of talking to companies. I'm going to take the month of December off just to kind of chill and reset and, you know, kind of relax. And then hopefully starting in January, I could start a position somewhere. So weird way, I'm doing this podcast on a day that means a lot to me and with a guy that really helped me get there. So that's super cool.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Yeah, and you know what's interesting is I'm going to take like a tiny bit of credit because I feel like I'm an agent and I discovered a star, you know. And I remember like, you know, what was it like? It feels like we've known each other for like years now, but it was really just a year ago. And I came across your content on YouTube, which back then I think you had like 200 or 300 subscribers. Now you're in the thousands already. And I remember when we talked, you know, the first thing I mentioned, and this is what I tell like a lot of physicians is, you know, a lot of physicians, you know, and people in general have a goal of like, I want to get involved in technology or startups, etc. The problem with a goal like that is that you have to go manually one by one and look for stuff, right? And you're very limited in that worldview. But what you ended up doing, and you did that like at scale, which was you ended up with a system of using your clinical background, which you focused on like kidney education, kidney health, and use that as a system, right? To one, educate people, but also amplify your brand. And then you ended up receiving a lot of inbound. And I remember the first 6 months that we met and we knew each other. I felt like, I think you called me like every week or so. Cause like this company called you, that company called you. So you had like all this inbound, and now you're making this transition from your clinical career, which you've done it for a long time, and you're now moving into a different phase of your clinical career, which is more on the technology side, which is super exciting.
Yeah, and it's weird, you know. I'm not a big fan of social media from a personal side, but from a professional side, I think it has to be embraced, especially on LinkedIn. I'm really big about, you know, meaningful content. Like, I think there's a lot of content out there that's actually garbage and kind of narcissistic and just blah, but making meaningful content that, you know, educates people, but also comes across for people to, you know, to get inspired by or whatever. LinkedIn has been such a great platform for that. And, you know, my followers have gone up on LinkedIn, but also just my reach and engagements are great. And so it's fun to talk to people about that. And again, what's cool is like this morning, a startup like literally texted me, messaged me on LinkedIn, which is cool. I wasn't going to get involved in it, but you know, it's cool just to have that there. And you know, I'm not saying I'm the expert of startups or the expert of anything, but I'm at that beginning phase. And in a weird way, Omar, I still feel like I'm in imposter syndrome. You know what I'm saying? Like I have that kind of mentality where like, do I really know what I'm doing? And so like, but at the same time, like you kind of have to rip up the Band-Aid sometimes, right? And just get in, right?
Absolutely. And I think that exists, you know, for a lot of people in a lot of places, right? Is that this imposter syndrome, which is like, you're not good enough, or like, you don't know, but you actually do. And, you know, and I think what I tell people all the time is like, you shouldn't be the judge of it. Let the market judge that. And if the market thinks you're ready, then you are, you know? And I think, I mean, you know, just because it's two guys talking, you know, like perfect example, you know, one of my younger cousins, we went out together, like, you know, this was a couple of years ago at a bar. He wanted to go, you know, he saw some girl that he knew, he really liked, he wanted to go talk to her. And he's like, oh, you know, I would like to go talk to that girl, but I don't think she'd be interested in me, you know, like, and he came up with some lame excuse. I'm like, did she tell you that? And he's like, no, she didn't. I was like, well, why are you making that decision for her? Like, you should just go and let that person make that decision. And lo and behold, like, you know, they actually started dating.
Oh, wow.
So he owes me. Yeah, he owes
crazy.
me for that. Yeah, he owes me for that. Yeah, the same case in this is that, like, yeah, you might not think that you have the experience, but like the market feels that you do, and the market feels that you have something of value, you know?
Yeah. And I would say this to a lot of clinicians, like, Well, in general, I think most people's biggest hurdles is their own inertia, right? They're just caught up in their own inertia and they don't know how to change it or change direction or whatever. But even as a physician, like what I've realized, especially talking to industry throughout the years, like they do not understand the point of care like we do. Right. They understand device and they understand pharmaceuticals, but they don't understand the actual where the rubber meets the road, right, with patient care. And I think a lot of that insight is needed, especially from physicians, to kind of contribute, whether that be an AI algorithm, ML, or just, a company as a whole, a device company, or like how, even in the sales department, what's the best way to approach a physician, right? What time should I come? What should I bring them? How should I explain it? That kind of thing, reimbursements, whatever it may be. Our insights mean something. And I don't think a lot of physicians undervalue that component. So.
No, I completely agree. And you know what? Let's start there, because I think a lot of physicians who want to get involved in MedTech and they may, maybe not even change their career, but just like explore it. One is that they don't have time, and they're kind of freaked out about it. And of course, not everybody has like, a platform like yours, even though yours, was back then. Again, I remind people this, it was small back then, but like, what's your recommendation? Like, what's a good first step for a physician just to start exploring this? Not even making a change in career, but just to say, let me explore this and get some inbound and see like what this is like. Like, what would you recommend to them?
So I've actually talked to a lot of physicians about this. I've actually got to talk to people on the other side already, like on the MedTech side and the healthcare startup side, and they got their advice about things. I think everyone's way in is different, right? Everyone's way in is different. But what I think is really beneficial, and I've told a lot of physicians this, is get on LinkedIn. Like a lot of physicians aren't on LinkedIn. It's not as much of a doctor platform. But what I've seen is get in LinkedIn, start friending people, start connecting with people, and connecting with people in your space. If you're a gastroenterologist, connect with people in the gastroenterology kind of MedTech kind of scene, or whatever it may be, hemonc or whatever it is, endocrinology, and then like see what companies are out there, and then honestly reach out to some of these people in those companies. Just message them on LinkedIn. What I found is so many people on LinkedIn are like super cool. Like they actually like engaging with people, and especially a physician. Like I think they value physician feedback and physician input. So, as a physician, I think get on LinkedIn, be somewhat active on it. If you're on social media already and you do social media, I mean, Facebook is great for certain things, like personal, but like just treat like LinkedIn almost like professional, right? And professional. And so it's an easy way to connect with people, reach out. And I'm sure like even like yourself, Omar, like you had a product, like with private practice. If a private practice said, hey, I own a private practice, could I talk to you someday? I'm pretty sure you'd be open to talking to them, right?
Absolutely.
And so that's how I think is a really easy, quick way to get involved in it. I mean, you can look up the MedTech scene and all that stuff. Maybe you can go to a conference like I did. I went to a conference after I got into it a little bit, so I knew what I was talking about. But even then, just jump right in. I found that most of the scene is actually very open and very receiving of doctors.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's a really good point, because, I think like most people, when a physician thinks about like starting a network or anything, they're like, they look at people who have like tens of thousands of followers and everything, and really you just have to just start small. And I think that the benefit about LinkedIn is, one is like you get to, just because somebody sends you a message doesn't mean like you have to reply to it. I mean, I recommend do it. Like you don't want to be a jerk about it. But, one thing I tell them is like, and actually I can use you as a very simple case study, because like it happened very naturally, but like you can engineer this. So like you and I got connected, right, on LinkedIn. So I was kind of your doorway into like back then, like the world of critical care, because I was with Potrero, and part of what we did, we were focused on urine output, right? So yeah, you and I didn't have a formal engagement. I didn't pay you back then, but I would call you and get advice from you on things, right? But yeah, in that process, as you posted, right, I would go and like your posts. Joe Urban will also go like your posts, and then because of us liking some of your posts, our network, which is other MedTech companies, would start seeing and be like, oh, like who's this nephrologist? We had no idea about him. And then you start getting more exposure, then you have more inbound with people connecting with you. And I think that using the industry to your advantage, like if, for example, simple example, if you're a surgeon, get on LinkedIn. I guarantee you all the reps who want to sell to you, or your reps who are supporting you right now, when you make a post, they're automatically going to go and like and comment on your post. And then as a result, their entire network starts seeing you. You do that once a week for a month or two, you'll be surprised how many people not only will reach out to you, but the whole key is like, getting exposure to new and different information. And that's what I think, like, you've done this at scale for a year, and that's how you're able to make this shift, like in not in an intense way. It's not like you just woke up and was like, I'm quitting my job. Like, it was very easy for you to kind of ease into it. Would you agree with that?
No, I completely agree. So I always find it funny, you were at Portrero Medical. Like Portrero is like my gateway drug into MedTech, right? Like it was like
it really is, yeah. Shout out to Accurate.
And it's, yeah, shout out to Accurate device. And so, well, what's funny is, like, you know, you started talking to me about that. And I think I talked to your sales team. I talked to Joe, and I gave my inputs as a nephrologist as far as urine output and the frustrations we have. I remember talking to your team, and this was really fascinating. I mean, they were like, why don't they like the hour by hour urine output thing? And I'm like, because in nephrology, we think of it on a 24-hour scale. So, like, I like to look at urine output, 24 hours later, and I look at the creatinine and kidney function 24 hours later. So we look in 24-hour intervals. You have to explain to people, like, to look at into a real-time device, like a real-time input into how the kidneys are actually doing now. So that's a different thing. So I remember talking to your sales department about that as well. But what was funny was, and I told you this, like, I thought was crazy, was I actually became a physician champion for your device at one of the hospitals. And
oh, that's
did not
awesome.
get paid right off. Yeah, remember Metropolitan Methodist? Remember?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So I was actually, trying to help you guys because I knew the device was really good and everything. And
yes, that's right.
And so I actually never got to physically see it at that time. And I did not get paid, but it gave me insight into the industry, gave me insight to people, and that kind of thing. And then funny thing is, my last weekend on call yesterday, I actually first time saw it in real life. I had the Accurate device, and it was like, oh my God. And like the last weekend on call, I'm on call, I actually finally see the Accurate device in real life, and I know you, I know Joe Urban, I know Dan Burnett, the inventor and founder of it. So it's so freaking cool how I came full circle in that way. And so, and again, it's just, I think it's just about opening your mind up. I don't think you and I do social media, and we like social media. I don't think you necessarily have to do videos like we do, or but I think you just have to be present on it, and maybe just comment, and just engage. And quite honestly, I get people reaching out to me all the time about, hey, I want to talk about stuff, and I'm like, sure, I can squeeze in a half an hour here and there, and get a new contact. And I've actually made friends, on this platform. So.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right, which is like a lot of people, when I talk to them about using LinkedIn to start a new career, they think like it's videos and everything. It's like, no, you can start something small, like literally, I mean, not even posting. If you just go and connect with people in your space who are thought leaders, people you want to work with, and you find time to go and leave comments. And when I say a comment, like, yeah, you can say like great post and everything, but if you can spend some time to think of a thoughtful comment, and some people leave like a paragraph or two on certain topics, their entire network plus your entire network sees that comment. And I think that's the one value of LinkedIn that other platforms don't have, is that you see very, very in-depth discussions happening. And that's kind of how you can develop yourself as a thought leader. Like, I don't know how many people on this podcast will know him because he's in a different space, but like Chris Walker, who's become like, I don't want to say an overnight success. I watched him do this for like the last 2 years. But, he's a big thought leader in B2B marketing. And a lot of his content, aside from like videos and everything, is like him leaving long, really informative comments on certain posts,
Oh, okay.
And I think the way, I mean, if you think about like, why do you go, for example, to a conference? Part of it is like to learn about new things, to engage with your peers in industry. And I would say that that's kind of the same concept you're doing on LinkedIn, except that's something that can be done at scale and, over a longer period of time. And it's not like, if you're at a conference, you have a discussion with somebody really interesting in depth, that's gone. You do it on LinkedIn, that's there for everybody to see for forever, technically, So I think that there's a scalability, there's a problem with scalability that LinkedIn or just social media in general helps solve.
Yeah, and especially LinkedIn, I think it gets rid of, like, I would say, like the barrier to entry of a conference. Like you don't have to pay an admission fee, you don't have to fly there, you don't have to get a hotel room, you don't have to do that awkward walk up, hey, where are you from kind of thing, right? You can literally like say, hey, this guy's in my space. Seems cool. Let me just message him. Hey man, I thought you were doing some cool things. Maybe we can connect on a Zoom call sometime. not awkward now. That's the Zoom calls are just a standard thing. So I think it's kind of, and I fully embrace it. And most of the time, most people embrace me when I ask for the same thing. So
let's talk about, like right now, I mean, there's a variety of different MedTech companies who I will not mention, but I know of them because we had talked about it, that have reached out to you because everyone's kind of vying for your business and for your attention and engagement. Mm-hmm. But like, what, in this new chapter of your career, like, what kind of things are you looking for? What kind of things get you excited? And maybe right you can now, kind of add to that, like, the nephrology space, because I think nephrologists have never really had the luxury of like really cool tech. And then now with this advent of like interventional nephrology, there's a lot of really interesting things that nephrologists can get involved with. So yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
So, what's weird is like, I don't foresee like, I like the MedTech stuff. I really do, new devices and stuff. But I don't think the biggest innovation or the biggest breakthrough in medicine as a whole is going to be a device or a new pharmaceutical. I think it's going to be innovation in the delivery of healthcare, right? Like the actual getting healthcare to people, and quite honestly, optimizing medications, but also decreasing costs. Right. So like we can talk about the next pharmaceutical or the next device, but quite honestly, even the standard of care stuff now, we're not really optimizing. Right. Like I think like if you think about like the doctor patient relationship, like if you're my patient, in the past, we thought, hey, I'm your doctor. I give you medication. I give you 2, 3, 4 medications. You should take them. And that's the end of story. And that's the relationship, right? What you realize is there's so much more to that, right? It's the patient behavior, the patient compliance. Is the medication affordable to you? Can you make your appointments? And that's where things like clinical care teams come in and other things to where the delivery of care has to be improved. And even improving like remote patient monitoring or virtual clinic, or virtual meetings and things like that. So I think the real innovation is going to be in those companies that actually deliver care better. Do you see what I'm saying? Not just get the next device. And so, I've kind of become in a weird way an expert in value-based medicine, particularly when it comes to kidney care. CMS came up with a new kidney care models to incentivize doctors in different ways. So, many people here listening on the MedTech side, everyone's always wanting to get that CPT code, right? Or bill fee for service. That's the model, right? Increase a revenue stream to a practice. That's how you market something. Well, now it's going to be more about creating value, right? It's going to be about not just, fee for service kind of incentivizes more care, but doesn't incentivize better care, right? So when you do value-based medicine and everyone's at risk for bad results, which it makes you essentially makes you a better doctor. So it's going to be interesting. I think anything that delivers care better and faster and decreases healthcare costs overall, I think that's where I see the most innovation and in a weird way get more excited about, because I've just seen so many inefficiencies in our market. Like healthcare and kidney care in general are just completely inefficient. Dude, I'm at a hospital, I'm not going to say where it was, but I'm staring at a EMR that is literally like something from the 1990s. Not joking.
They suck, don't they?
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I believe
they suck. And it's like, and it's like black and white, and it's like so simplistic, and it's like this would never be acceptable in any other industry, right? And so,
no, definitely not.
Do
you find that frustrating?
That's where I get.
Do you find that frustrating? Like as a clinician, I mean, I feel like there's value to standardization and data in healthcare, but the problem, I mean, again, me speaking from the few years I spent in medical school, not every patient falls into a drop-down menu. Like, do you find EMRs frustrating? Do you feel like they've kind of
So with the inherent problem with EMRs is they're not designed for clinical care. They're designed for billing. That's what they're designed for, right? So they're not like the billing codes that we have, which are ridiculous, ICD-10 codes. I mean, they don't make any sense from a clinician standpoint. So even the drop-down menu, you're like, okay, what kind of congestive heart failure is this? What kind of high blood pressure is this? Like, it's such a elaborate, drop-down menu. You're just like, okay, I'll just pick one. So the billing system, EMRs, again, like the usability of them, they're not intuitive by any means. You have to actually get trained on them because they're so bad. So that's always, I think that's ripe for innovation as well too. So
totally. So if you don't mind me asking, like, there are physicians who are going to be listening to this, and probably thinking like, I really want to just quit my job. I'm just done with this. Like, you know, but
Yeah. I talked to one today, by the way, but
oh, really? Well, like, yeah, walk us through that, because like, it's kind of it is scary, right? So like,
yeah,
what did that look like for you? How did your peers react? You know, how did you manage the pressure? Because I guarantee someone's going to be like, someone back then was probably trying to convince you not to do it and trying to like shame you, you know? So what was that like for you?
Well, the hardest part of like, if you get into like MedTech or startups as a whole, is explaining the concept of MedTech and startups to regular people, right? It's just a abstract concept to people, right? Like everyone thinks a startup may be Facebook 20 years ago, right? That's what it is. They don't understand conceptually how it works, or even the healthcare industry. So that's been a hard part for me. Like, so what are you going to do? I'm like, I'm going to go into, you know, this and do this. So I literally have to go on like a 5 to 10 minute rant about what it is. You see what I'm saying? As far as you're saying, like, as far as, what was the question again, man? It was like
when you decided to leave, like, you know, you had to talk to your partners and everything, and like, how, like, what's your recommendation to physicians who do this? So like, for example, you know, if a physician starts posting more on LinkedIn and everything, you know, they might get some, you know, pushback from partners. Some people in the group may not like it.
I mean, and I actually got that too. I got some pushback from partners too, because I have my own brand of social media. Yeah. But at the same time, like, I think, you know, the best way out, and maybe everyone's different. You know, I felt like I had to rip off the Band-Aid and just jump in. But, you know, a good way out, if you are a physician, maybe going part-time in your practice, right? And not being a full-time clinician, maybe opening up time slots for consulting, or, you know, working part-time. A lot of these roles are part-time medical director or part-time CMO. You know, you can open up those kind of roles for you, and that way you keep cash flow coming into your house, and then you can still experiment. You see what I'm saying? So that's an out as well too.
What made you say you're going to just jump in?
Well, a lot of reasons. I think I just had my frustrations with the practice, but also just in medicine as a whole. And I just, you know, it's weird. I just was like, you know what? I need to do this. Like, I just need to do it. So I can't explain it. It was just a level of frustration. I was like, you know what? And I have this weird thing, man. So I had next month in January, I turned 45, and I was like, I'm not having another goddamn birthday again here. You know what I'm saying? I was like, I need to finally move on. And I think your mid 40s, what's interesting is I think in your mid 40s, you're more comfortable with who you are as a person, and you kind of realize your value. You see what I'm saying? And so, and you're very confident in who you are. So I think it may be an opportune time. I don't want to go into my 50s or 60s and regret like that I never did it. Right?
No, totally.
And what's cool is that and an opportune time too. Like, what's cool is what I've noticed in the medtech or healthcare scene, the doctors that are in it are people like yourself, that went to med school, you know, and then dropped out, or just did med school, or maybe did residency. They're not doctors that have 11 years experience like I do. And so if you're a clinician out there listening and you have 5, 6, 7 years, 8 years, 10 years experience,
it's extremely powerful.
You know, that
very valuable.
It's like, whoa, I can literally speak to, if someone comes up with like a value-based medicine scheme, or like a new device, I can really tell you, hey, this is where I think it fits in. And would the market like it? You see what I'm saying? Certain things I'm like, I don't think anyone would buy that product, you know, because it doesn't do what it's supposed to, or like doesn't bring revenue.
Absolutely right. You know, and I think, you know, this is the weird part of like where medicine is right now, which is, and again, no offense to them, but I'm just going to call this out, and some people are going to have an issue with this, but you know, whatever, it's true, is that you have some people who go to medical school and they graduate with an MD, and they decide like they don't want to go to practice. That's totally okay. And they'll go to work for like McKinsey or Bain or like one of these management consulting firms and everything. And then they expect to be, you know, like when they deal with MedTech, like when I deal with somebody like that, they expect for me to value their opinion as though they actually practice. And that's not even the case. And it's even for somebody who went through residency. If somebody went through residency and let's say even finished, like it's not the same. Like, I'm sorry. Like, no, you know, their opinion is valuable by all means. It is valuable. But in terms of, I mean, I would say that I respect the opinion of, let's say, a rep who's worked in spine surgery for the last 10, 15 years, telling me like where they think clinically things are going and how, and how to improve things, versus somebody who just finished like, you know, I don't know, a year or two residency, like it's just not the same. So I think like clinicians who have been doing it for at minimum like three to 5 years minimum, like bring a lot of value. What I would say is on the flip side that finding ways, kind of again like what you did, you spent this last year kind of like going to like startup MedTech university. Like you went to conferences, you and I talked a lot. You spent time engaging with the industry, and a lot of that was free. But in exchange, you're getting exposure to like how people think about product, how they sell, and all these things. You know, including how a hospital goes through buying cycles. So like all that knowledge, now you've been able to like very successfully like. I know you've done like more paid engagements and everything, which is awesome. Like the fact that I think you're the first like one of the first physician influencers clinically that I know, at least definitely in internal medicine, hands down. But I think like in doing that, you were able to develop those skills, you know?
Yeah. And to your point, like just because you went to med school doesn't mean you know how to be a doctor. You just learn book learning, and you do some clinical rotations. It's there. And residency, I would agree with you there. You do get some training in it. But I think when you're finally out on your own, and I remember the first 2-3 years of practice, you're just struggling in the weird sense of finally getting your stride, right? And you being confident in who you are at that point. So it took 2-3 years just to do that. And then after, 11 years, I'm like, whoa, you get a really good perspective. And what was interesting was yesterday I was actually sitting with some med students that were coincidentally at my hospital. I was just telling them about what I was doing and stuff. And it's weird how you can speak with such confidence after a certain point in your life and be like, you know what, I don't have it all figured out even at my age, right? And you can tell a med student that, it's kind of interesting. They could be the next Omar Khateeb, right? He may drop out and go into MedTech or something.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
But it's so true, and I think it's a sign of the times, though, man. Like there's no more like linear jobs, right? It's kind of like
absolutely
molding your job to where you are in life.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and I think that's the problem with doctors as well too. And this is because we're so academic. Like we're in school until like 28, 29, 30, you know what I'm saying? Like residency, fellowship, everything included or whatever. And what a problem with academia is that it's like an academic mindset. It robs you of creativity, and it makes you think life is linear, right? Finish college, finish med school, finish residency, finish fellowship, get a job, and 30 years later die, right? Like that's like how you
30 years
think,
later.
Right?
I like it.
After your 401k is full and you can retire or whatever it is, right? Like that's the logic. Right. And whereas you start to realize that life is not linear, it is literally horizontal, backwards, forwards, up and down, and you can change and reinvent yourself, which is so fun. Like it's kind of scary. And what's cool, even as a doctor, I say to a lot of doctors out there, guess what, guys? Even if you take the leap, you have a skill set that pays a lot of money. So like worst case scenario, if I don't have something lined up right away, right, like in the next few months or whatever, I can still work a part-time locums working and make money to offset
That's a great point.
Right? And most people don't have that kind of career, guys. So if you're taking a career change as a physician, guess what? You can easily pick up a few shifts here or there, wherever, and supplement income.
That's absolutely true. That is so
true. I have to get over that. I have to get over that kind of thinking, of like, oh, hey, I'm not getting this. I'm not getting the set salary every 2 weeks. But it's kind of a leap. But I don't know. Like, I got to the point where the fear the frustration overran the fear. So it's
totally.
Like, I gotta jump. Yeah.
The money. I tell people this all the time is that like, you can always make back the money. You can't make back the time. Yeah. And so you're
true.
better off. You can always go back. That's the thing. I think people have this misconception. It's like, if I leave, I'm done. It's like, no, that's not, like, life isn't that bad. And I think the other thing is that, there's options. So like, Dr. John Jurica, Jurica, he has a website called Non-Clinical Physicians or Non-Clinical Careers. If you Google non-clinical physician careers, it'll come up. And so there's a lot of ways for physicians to make money on the side, whether it is like medical writing or dealing with like the legal system and stuff. There's just a lot of locums is a great example of that, just picking up shifts, But I think the biggest thing, I guess, takeaway from what you said is for physicians who are interested, like, just get on LinkedIn and start engaging with the community. And then if there's something really there that is interesting to them, like, take the leap and just look at it as like a sabbatical year and go like part-time for a year. And with that extra time, just like really dive in, like invest in going to a conference. I mean, you invested in going to this LSI conference. It wasn't cheap, but like the amount of like network and opportunities you walked away from there, like, I still run into people today from LSI and they're like, hey, is Qasim going next year? I'm like, I don't know. I have to ask him. So. Yeah.
No, it's super cool. And again, like, I don't know, like, I think you have to stop thinking in terms of just money. Like when you think of ROI, like, like you have to start thinking of experience and knowledge and other things as well, and friendships and, innovation as an ROI, right? Like, as opposed to just thinking of it as a monetary gain, right? So that friendship, like yourself, like you haven't paid me, I haven't paid you, but it's paid off in so many ways.
I paid you with
right?
love, Qasim. A lot of love.
Yeah. I won't tell your wife that, dude. I won't tell your wife.
No, our wives would get really pissed, man.
Yeah. So that's how you have to start thinking of it. And I think it depends on the person. You don't have to be these, like us that are like kind of outgoing personalities that like to talk and engage. You don't have to be that,
you're the most outgoing nephrologist I've ever seen in my life. I remember I told you, I know. I was like, some people that like he's a nephrologist. I'm like, I have no idea. Something went wrong in a very good way. But there's somehow this guy. You have
any idea how bored I am at a nephrology conference? It's like going to a it's like just a bunch of dorks and a few pretty girls, and then dorky, like,
hey, but man, but look, straight up though, I've been to so many different MedTech conferences. Let me tell you. Neph Twitter is lit. The nephrologists on Twitter, I don't know what, lit, insane. I mean, it's so wild.
I don't like Twitter, and I've heard it's the the platform for nephrologists, but I feel like it's also the platform for douchebags. So I just don't like it, So I've never really gotten engaged with it.
I heard something the other day. Who knows? Maybe I don't think this will get me banned. LinkedIn, don't ban me. You love me. I love you guys. But someone said LinkedIn's kind of like the North Korea of social media. And I'm like, that is really on point. Like, think about it. Because like for us, LinkedIn, we use LinkedIn all the time. But have you ever talked to somebody who's very big in social media, or you just use social media a lot for their business or brand, and then they're not on LinkedIn? Like it's a thing. Like, I've never met somebody who's like got LinkedIn, Twitter, and they don't have Instagram or something. So, like, anytime I talk to people who are not using LinkedIn, because usually they're, like, in the consumer world or politics or something, so they're just not on LinkedIn. So, yeah, I feel LinkedIn's in North Korea of social media, man. It's, like, kind of secluded. Yeah. It's got its own thing going on, You can't just post. It's totally got its own propaganda. You can't just post anything you want on LinkedIn. Like, Instagram, Twitter, you can find all kinds of stuff. LinkedIn, no, like no matter which industry, and there's kind of like a set boundary of like, no, you can't do that on LinkedIn, No, and that's a cool thing. There are some people that break the politics. LinkedIn's a good version of North Korea. How about that?
So they break the rules of LinkedIn sometimes, but then you have like people that detractors, and they're just like, not detractors, but like literally people that ban. This is not the place for this in LinkedIn.
Aren't those people the best? Oh gosh, I'll tell you.
Self-break, and now, go ahead.
Those people, I take advantage of them all the time because I'll post stuff. Actually, it's been a while since I don't think anybody has done that yet. But I say take advantage of those people. All those haters, they're just adding fuel to the algorithm to optimize your post. It's just like, love it. Hate on it,
Yeah. I think once you get into social media, you realize the game of it and how the algorithms work, and you're like, it's an interesting. But overall, I generally think LinkedIn has the most substantive content.
I totally agree there. Best like content.
It's substantive. Best content as far as like, you can really know what's going on in the business world, like literally know. You can learn things about different industries, and, connect with people from different industries. And that's what I really feels like, like we went to those MedTech conferences, which was interesting. I said there's not that many doctors there. And I really believe that the biggest innovation in healthcare is going to come from non-doctors, because I think you need outside industries to look at healthcare and say, hey, you're not doing this right. It's like, I think we become so insular and we don't even notice the problems, right? Like, for 11 years, I've been staring at a EMR that's really subpar for even 20 years ago, like, so.
I think it's a combo of both, because like on the other side, and so you're speaking from the clinician side, for me on the tech side, the issue is that sometimes I see a lot of industries come into healthcare and like, ooh, US spends like 25% of its GDP on healthcare. We're going to make so much money in here. And then they come with these solutions, and you can tell which companies didn't really spend a whole lot of time talking to doctors, because you just look at what they're doing and you're like, this is stupid. No doctor is going to use this. And I think you see that pretty often. I think like, there's some really big tech companies that came in and they just failed. And I think it's because they didn't spend enough time really engaging with clinicians. I think they spent time engaging with clinicians who are at the top, chairs of
academics,
XYZ, super academic, which is fine. There's a time and place for that, but like healthcare, there's so much around it. I want to go back to this concept, and maybe this is kind of like the next area where I think physicians can make a lot of impact, because on the there's only so much you can do on the clinical and pharmaceutical side. That takes a lot of time, but in terms of delivery of care, that seems like it could be impacted rather quickly, just in terms of how you engage with patients. So what made you say that? 'Cause you didn't say this to me like a year ago. What makes you say that that's going to be the biggest area for innovation?
Because I genuinely believe like the cost of care is going to be taken into account now. CMS knows that what we're doing is unsustainable. The fee-for-service model is unsustainable, right? So in order to optimize care, you can't pay in the fee-for-service model, because the fee-for-service model incentivizes more care. It doesn't incentivize better care, right? So what that means is, when you go at risk, that's what they essentially do. Like they'll take an entity, a company, or insurance company or whatever, and they'll say, or primary care practice, and say, guess what, you're at risk for your patients, meaning you get this capitated payment quarterly for patient care, and and you're responsible for the total cost. So if you save us money as a payer, we're gonna give you more money. If you don't save us, you're gonna be dinged for it. So how do you improve that overall outcome is in the delivery of care. And I've noticed that even with some primary groups we work with, hey, don't send our patients to the ER. Send us to our urgent care center. We have our own urgent care center that handle urgent needs. Don't send them to the ER, because the ER visit is going to cost us $3,000-$4,000 out of our pocket. Do you see what I'm saying? And that also incentivizes outpatient procedures, right, in ambulatory surgical centers or office-based labs, as opposed to sending to the hospital, because the hospital costs too much. Everything that's done in the hospitals costs too much. So that's where I see a lot of the care. And again, also the delivery of care, in a weird way, in the next 5 to 10 years, I really foresee a lot of doctors losing power in these new models. And the reason why is because
it's already happening. Yeah,
it's happening. We've already seen it, like in our lives, like even my 10 or 11 year career. And again, these clinical care teams are going to come into account, and doctors may be a part of those teams, but they're not going to be the primary one, the guy that makes all the decisions, kind of thing, right? You're going to punt to the nutritionist, you're going to punt to the nurse practitioner, you're going to punt to the social worker. So there's going to be a lot of aspects of care of the patient, and really treating a patient as a whole, right? Again, like to be honest, like our patients probably take their compliance with their meds are probably 50%. And we play this, game with our patients. It's funny. We almost lie. Like we give them a list of medications that go 10 to 15 pills long. Right? Some of them once a day, some of them 3 times a day, some of them 2. I'm like, who are we kidding? Like, it's not physically possible for a human being to take 10 or 15 medications in a day, multiple different dosings. It's not physically possible, but we play this stupid game. So that's why I think the delivery of care and all that kind of stuff is going to be huge.
It makes complete sense. 'Cause like, look, even me, I mean, look, I'm in extremely good shape. I'm healthy. Yeah, I'm in my mid-30s.
Not bragging at all.
Not bragging at all.
You're good looking too. And
for those of you who are who are listening to this on audio, you can't see just how like my muscles are just like bursting through my shirt at this point. But like, I have some very basic medication. There's two pills I have to take at night. Sometimes I forget. Like it happens. Yeah, it happens. And
I take a multivitamin a day and I forget. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you're absolutely right that there's this concept around, Dr. Cheng Ruan, who's a really fantastic medicine. He has a integrative medicine practice down in Texas Center for Lifestyle Medicine, and he calls it collaborative medicine, which is like, it's the doctor working with a variety of people, like a health coach, a nutritionist, a nurse practitioner, etc.
It's kind of the functional medicine model, right? Like the
exactly, to deliver better quality care for patients. And I think that,
those models were really interesting. Oh, sorry. Well, I was going to say those models are interesting too, because those wellness, I think they follow the DPC model, the direct primary care model, where they used to do a subscription, right? Like $100, $150 a month, and they're your doctor and they're your team, right? So, which is super cool. But there's a bias there too. I don't know his practice at all, but what I've seen is those wellness clinics oftentimes have a bias in the sense the people that go to them typically give a damn about their health, right? So there's like, it's a selection bias almost. So you get a different result. So, like you said with him, that's an excellent model, and I'm not sure if that's his model, the DBC model or whatever it is, but I think what they're doing is taking that kind of model and applying it to CMS Medicare patients. You see what I'm saying? And even commercial payers and embracing it too. So
I think what's interesting is that like more physicians because the history of physicians is actually like very entrepreneurial. Like this whole thing of like getting employed by a hospital, this is just like come up in the last like 20 years, like mainly the last 10 years, because it's not culturally part of medicine. And I think that there's more and more physicians who get frustrated, like yourself, and they just decide either they're going to do something completely different or they're going to have their own model. Like Daniel Paul is an orthopedic surgeon. You should check him out on LinkedIn. He just finished residency a few years ago and was trying to find a job. Didn't like the places he interviewed, the groups that he was at, and he just said, screw it, I'm starting my own practice. But get this, he decides like he doesn't have the money to open up a brick and mortar, so he's like, okay, I'm going to do mobile orthopedic care. So he's an orthopedic surgeon, he has a mobile practice, and he said, wow, you know what, I'm sick and tired of dealing with insurance companies and everything. I'm going to work this out with the patient, and we're going to do cash based, which a lot of people are like, oh, well, that's kind of BS because he's just taking really rich patients. No, he's not actually. He's not. He's worked with the device companies and with the patients in certain ways. Like, he has a lot of patients who are coming from a variety of different incomes, but no physical practice. He's a mobile practice and it's cash based. Oh, and he's doing well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you wonder if that kind of model is going to work, is going to survive. Like, I'm a big fan of HSA accounts. Like, I have an HSA account, and putting the control of the dollar to the patient really makes a big difference. Like, all of a sudden you're looking for the cheapest way of getting a medication, or the cheapest way of an x-ray or whatever it is, because it comes out of your pocket. Right. So, I'm a big fan of that because, I think that's the biggest problem we have in healthcare is like, we don't have a direct consumer to seller relationship. Right.
Yeah.
We have an intermediary. A third-party intermediary, whether it be CMS or whether it be a commercial payer, that kind of incentivizes distorts the market, if you will, right? There's a book out there, I think if you read it, but The Price We Pay, and it was talking about, I forgot who was the author of it, but it's a really known guy, but he was talking about how in America we do have the best healthcare, we have the best technology, best doctors, and all this stuff.
If you have money,
but our incentive, huh?
I said we have the best healthcare in America if you have money.
The money, but he was talking specifically of if you have like these certain aspects that are really good, but you have the incentive structure that incentivizes bad behavior, right? And
that's exactly correct.
Yeah, and so you incentivize bad behavior, and in a weird way, you see this all the time. Insurance companies are trying to screw doctors, doctors are trying to screw insurance companies, and vice versa, and hospitals, and everyone's trying to get theirs, right? So it's a weird incentive structure, and that's why you hear billing being so high, or like that kind
or
of
this
thing.
Doctor going to jail. I feel like every week Becker's Healthcare has a new article about some doctor that was like running a Ponzi scheme with billing companies or insurance companies. Is, like,
is that
right? Yeah, every
I don't
week,
know if
man.
I don't know if it says that behavior, but it's like, why do you receive like $100,000 bill for the hospital, right? They don't, like, why? Because the insurance companies say, no, we're only going to pay 80% of that. We're not going to pay the 100,000, right? So they up the bill and they unbreak. So it's a weird system, man. It's weird.
It is extremely weird. So, in kind of like wrapping up, and again, we appreciate you jumping on. Like for those physicians who are listening, like, what can they do this week just to get started.
Just to get started. Oh,
just to get started.
Whatchamacallit?
Just like, you
Wow.
know, yeah, that's a great question, right? What would, like, if let's say I took your channel away, I took everything away, and you have to start from scratch. Actually, this would be a great show. Actually, you have to start from scratch, Qasim, but no one knows you. Like, what would you do this week, like, to get started, knowing that, like, you know, you're not happy with clinical practice, and you're like, I think I want to explore the MedTech world. Like, what would you tell a physician to do this week?
Okay, so you know what's really helped me out in a weird way? Over the last few years, I've done a lot of these consulting gigs. Like, I don't know if you heard of GLG, Athenium, and all these kind of companies. They reach out to doctors. We all get these emails. Most of us throw them away. Like, they throw them away, right? They're acting for a paid consult. You know, if they pay you a few $100s for your hour of your time, most physicians are like, whatever, I'm not going to do that. That really gave me insight into industry. That was the first step. Like, even before you and before COVID and before MedTech, that really gave me an insight into what industry is. And you think as a doctor, like we think academically, they're like, oh my God, I got to know everything, a little thing about this. I have to know everything. As no, the industry's questions are so basic sometimes. Like their understanding of what we do are so basic. So like your that hour of your time for that consulting opens your eyes up to saying, oh my God, like I actually know a lot, you know, kind of reinforced to me that I actually know something that industry wants to know. So it could be something as patient workflow, what kind of medications you use, what kind of procedures you do, why you would do this as opposed to that. Oh, even marketing flyers. What works for you, doctor? Does this marketing flyer make you want to buy this product? And so that was really gave me some insight. So those stupid consulting things that you threw away, like start actually scheduling some time for them, and you get an insight into industry as a whole. And so, and also like other physicians, like don't think it's just MedTech. There's other outs. You know what I'm saying? There's other outs. You can get your MBA if you want, and everything's online now, so you can get your MBA online. You have roles as far as, you know, administration in hospitals, chief medical officer of hospitals. You have roles in insurance companies and all this kind of stuff. But if you want to be innovative and you want to have fun, I think startups and MedTech in particular are just super cool. And you know, also, by the way, man, if you want to go med device, you can go to established companies like Medtronic, Bard, all those kind of places too. You don't have to do startups, right? They're looking for people too. So
that's good.
I would say, right? Like, so I would say, you know, I would say one, do those GLG things, get on LinkedIn, follow certain hashtags and post with certain hashtags about med device and see what comes out of it. And I think it'll be pretty positive, and be open-minded. I would say be very open-minded and try to change yourself. And if I would recommend a book I'm just reading right now, it's called, oh my God, Innovator's Prescription, a disruptive solution for healthcare. And I just started reading it. I'm just like, oh my God, this is so freaking cool. So this book is really, I mean, I just started it, but I think it's gives you a good idea where healthcare is going and how to be innovative in healthcare. So.
Fantastic. We'll have to check it out. And then just to kind of wrap up the show, I usually do a little bit of rapid fire. So for you, I'm going to have one simple question, and you can take time to think about it. But let's say for the next year, all physicians that you know in America are going to go into work and they're going to see a billboard. I take a billboard out in every city, in front of every hospital, in front of every practice, and they're going to see this message. What message do you put on that billboard and why?
Oh my God. What is that? What's that message? Oh my God. Like as a personal message? Is that what you're saying? Is it a personal message, or is it
whatever
like
you want? Like you have a microphone now, you know, or an opportunity where you can deliver a message to inspire action with physicians across the country. They see this billboard every day for a year. What do you put on that billboard?
Oh, for a physician. Okay, then at that point I would say physicians should know they have value outside of medicine. And so I'd say that is key. It's that your clinical knowledge base is applicable to industry and other places as well too. So don't just think all you can do is patient care, or all you can do is see patient, you know, go to the hospital. That you have actual value your knowledge base has value and power, that it can get you rewards outside of medicine.
Awesome. Fantastic. Qasim, it's a pleasure, man. I know we're going to have you back. It's great to finally do this. This has been a long time coming, but thanks for coming on the show, man. Stay on for a few minutes. Cool. Let's chat afterwards. Thank you all for joining. We're going to be doing more of these soon, okay? Thank you for listening to another episode of The State of MedTech. I'm your host, Omar. I'm Khateeb. Do us a favor, if you like this episode, share with somebody, and go ahead on Apple and Spotify, wherever you are, leave a 5-star review, type a few nice notes about us. This is how we get other people to find the show. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.